In this interview with Vernon Richards, we'll be talking about career paths and he'll be sharing some advice on how to get promoted, active listening, coaching. He shares a lot of useful gems in this interview. Enjoy. I'm here with Vernon Richards. He is a senior expert quality engineer at Ada Health by day, and by night he is a quality coach. I also initially crossed paths with him as the Test Bash MC. Today we're going to be talking about career paths. Welcome, Vern. How are you doing?
Greetings. I am well. I've not been sleeping very well, but apart from that, I'm pretty good. Pretty good.
All
Excited
right.
to be here.
I'm excited to have you. I am going to go straight into it with my first question. What does a typical career path for a software tester look like?
I would say the initial part of a software tester's career is pretty atypical because we seem to arrive in the career from all different directions and paths and things like that. So I came from tech support. I know people that were scientists before, or they were journalists or did a journalism degree and things like that. So to get into it doesn't seem to be that typical. But then once people arrive, things start to kind of coalesce, I would say. Some people seem to go down a leadership kind of track, and other people go down a technical kind of track. And some people stay as ICs and they are a little bit more focused on their team, whether that's technical or not. So that's the if there is a typical path, it kind of looks like that.
If you don't mind me asking,
Mm.
is there a difference between the technical path and the individual contributor path?
So I wrote a post a few months ago now on this topic, and what I see is there are like three different strands to thinking about your career. You can take a perspective on the business, or you can take a perspective on the the testing part, the technical testing part, or you can focus on the people. The reality is that no matter what we're doing, we're thinking about those three things, but I think the emphasis changes depending on what you're doing.
I'm looking at the post now, or the one I
Ah,
believe you're referring to. So I'm cheating a little bit. And it is a split between focus on people, focus on
mm,
technology, and focus on business.
hmm
Could someone want to focus on two or three of those areas, or do you have to
yeah,
be focused on one? And
yeah.
for
I think
you yourself, where, what have you focused on and why?
firstly, I think you invariably do focus on all three. Like, I don't think so. In other words, I don't think you can exclude any. It's more that your emphasis is in one or two places to the detriment of others. So to answer that question by using myself as an example,
Hmm.
I tend to focus on people. So that's people in a similar role to me in the same team, or in a similar role to me in different teams. It could be my developer teammates. It could be my product owner teammates, scrum masters, all this kind of thing. So I tend to think about people and how they're working together. That's probably my default focus. And then in so doing, I'm thinking about the business, I would say. And then the technology is probably where I focus the least. But it's not that I ignore it. It's just that I focus on it the least amount of time. I tend to spend a lot of my time with people, which is how ended up going down this coaching path. So it's not. I don't think you could be very successful if you completely ignore technology in a software testing or quality role. Uh, so it's more that you're emphasizing one thing over another without excluding it.
Would it be like a case of playing to your strengths? Like, do you feel like by
100%.
focus? Okay.
Yeah, for me, that's what it is. I think I'm more naturally a people person, and that has helped me with my testing. So there's always one example that I think about. So back in the day, I was working for a consultancy, and I was working on a team. We were at a media company in the UK, and I was on a team. So my team was here, and my team was focused on selling uh, packages, TV packages, the hardware that you'd watch them on, and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we were dependent on a bunch of the other teams that were there in that business. And before too long, I was the person who, if we ever needed anything from any of those teams, I was the person that you would send.
I
Because
see
every
why they did that.
yeah,
No, I
because
mean,
every yeah, because everybody was like, "Oh, it's Vern. How can I help?" So I was like, "Oh, Vern, we need to do this. Can you go on?" I was like, "Yeah, cool." And I'd go and sort that out. Or we need test data from the data team. It's like, "Okay, cool. I'll go talk to them." Because the data team was particularly funny because they had a queuing system because they were super duper in demand. And because of my relationship with the people that ran the team, I was able to skip the queue. Sorry, teammates in other teams who I rudely jumped in front of. But yeah.
okay, a bit of a tangent because like the ability, like in the workplace and for your career, the ability to get along well with people and connect with people, I think is so important.
Hmm.
And I still remember working with someone who, or a few people who have this amazing ability to connect with people,
Yeah.
and I still don't know if it's something that can be learned or something that's innate. Do you have any advice for someone who wants to be better at connecting with people
My
at work?
God. Oh my God. Do I have advice? Yes, I do. How much time have you got? Okay, so I don't know enough about it to say whether it's innate or not, but you can definitely get better at it. And so I am very enthusiastic about coaching. So over the last few years, soft skills have come more to the fore in the software development space. And I think coaching is a very practical kind of wrapper around how to actually deliver those, that actually implement and use those soft skills. So one of the key tenets, in my opinion anyway, about coaching is active listening. If you listen to people but genuinely listen, that is like magic. It really is. Now I think, as I reflect, and I hope I'm not just rewriting history, but what it what I can definitely say for sure is I find people ridiculously interesting. And I think that has meant that I listen possibly more intently than people generally do. And when you listen to people and you just make the conversation about them because you just think they're cool, because they are cool, then people kind of think, "Oh, Werner's all right," and it's like, I'm, however all right I am, you're cooler because you're just cool. Because you used to live in New Zealand and now you've ended up in Sweden and now you're like doing all this crazy stuff online. Like, you're my goddamn hero. It's like, why wouldn't I listen to you? Because you're amazing. So it's that kind of thing. But active listening is hard. Like, people say, yes, I'm an active listener, but really, what that is about, this is gonna sound woo woo as hell. So sorry, listeners and viewers, but like, you need to listen not just with your ears. You need to listen with everything. So, what did people look like when they said the thing? What emotion did you feel when they said what they said? Like, how animated or not were they? Were they looking at you, or were they looking over here when they said it? Or were they like, it's all of that. And then when you reply to them, you can demonstrate you were listening by playing things back. Say, okay, you when you said blah blah blah, did you mean this or did you mean something else? And it's that, if you demonstrate you're listening, people feel heard because we're not often listened to very much, and then that builds rapport. And then before you know it, you've kind of hit it off with people, and then suddenly cool things can happen. If you just spend the whole time talking, like I just have for the last 10 minutes, people, like if you're just talking at people saying, "Well, I'm wonderful, and this is amazing, and this is all about me," and you said that you've built this framework. Well, I've built 10 frameworks in the same amount of time, so I'm
Um,
so wonderful. It's like
One
that.
upping is not super
Oh man,
fantastic.
I can
Do
relate
you
to
have
that.
any resources from the top of your head that you can share on the topic, or maybe
Of
you can
coaching,
share it with me, yeah, or active listening as well?
I'd have to go and look for the active listening stuff because I found something recently that I want to go and dig into. But just in terms of, this is going to be relevant. So 3 books. One is my go-to recommendation in this situation. It's Crucial Conversations by Joseph Grenny and et al. There's like
Yeah,
5
there's like
authors.
5 authors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. But look for Joseph Grenny, Crucial Conversations. I love that book. It gives you a very practical model for how to communicate. So basically, the premise of the book is usually we have 2 options when we're trying to tell somebody when we're on it's an important topic and our emotions start to increase and get heightened. We either choose devastation. It's like, I'm going to tell you exactly what's on my mind, God damn it. Or you just don't say anything and you just hold it in and you stew and it festers and builds resentment. They talk about there's a third option where you can be as frank as that so people can feel heard. So you don't have to hold it in, but you don't destroy them and it still builds trust. It doesn't destroy the trust. So that's Crucial Conversations. I love that book. I listen to it at least once a year. Excuse me. Second one is The Coach's Casebook by Kim Morgan and I can't remember your name, Jeff. I think it's Jeff. But The Coach's Casebook by Kim Morgan. Kim Morgan runs a company, or founded rather, a company called Barefoot Coaching, which is where I did my training. She is awesome. The company is awesome, and the book is incredible. It gives you, it's literally a case study of different coaching situations that the 2 authors have been in and how they use coaching to get out of them, and it demonstrates all the things that they believe make you a good coach. So that's really good. And the third one I would say is Coaching for Performance by Sir John Whitmore, who has sadly passed away. But in coaching, there's a model called the GROW model. The GROW model is super practical, right? So please go and research that, even though I've butchered what the acronym stands for. Coaching for Performance, the author of that book came up with that model while he was creating a company. I think it's called High Performance Coaching or something. Really great book. Really talks about how to use coaching in a professional context, in a company, how to deliver, how to use it as a leader, how you can use it to be impactful, how to grow your people. So yeah, I would recommend those 3.
I was a bit slow in seeing what you did there. I was like, why is he doing a drum? Okay, sorry. All right. Now, regarding career paths, presumably people often want to go upwards and
Yeah.
get promoted. What advice do you have for testers who want to get promoted?
I've got to try and condense this down. I did a talk about this recently at Agile Testing Days. Gosh, there's so much to say. So I think the first thing I would get clear on is, start with why. The famous book, Simon Sinek, like, why do you even want to get this promotion? The reason that's important is because it's going to be hard. Like, you should expect it to be effortful, and it may not happen as quickly as you wish. I mean, it might. It's not impossible. It really is very, very possible. But you should expect, like, just in case, like, really be clear about try and figure out what impact having this promotion is going to give you. The obvious one is money, but maybe there's other ones. So start with why and prepare yourself for it to not be easy. Something else I would say is to find people who have gone down this path before, but not necessarily that they're so miles down that road that they can't empathize anymore with what it's like to go from where you are to the next step. So you can still talk to those folks, but like, I would it'd probably be more practical and more powerful for you to find people who are a few steps ahead of you, so they can tell you, yeah, you're going to run into this problem, here's how I overcome it, and that kind of thing. Think in terms of impact and who you're going to be impacting. What many of us get into a trap where we think to ourselves, well, I've been at this company for 2 years and I've not had a promotion or a pay rise, and that's outrageous. And it's like, I'm not saying it's not outrageous. I'm just saying generally companies do not give you promotions just for hanging around. Like, so think about what impact can I have for my immediate teammates and the people that would be interested in the skill set that I will need in order to get the promotion, and let me start working with those people and building up my reputation, so that when I make the ask, or it's time to deliver on the ask that I made a few months ago, and the decision makers go looking for evidence, and they go talk to Nicola, like, "Hey, Nicola, tell me about Vernon." Like, "Oh my God, Vernon, amazing! Like, we can't do without Vernon. He's absolutely incredible."
You
Like,
should
that's what they
definitely
want.
promote him.
You need to. You haven't promoted him already. Have you lost your mind?
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of reaction you want people to have, and you want to gather evidence of the impact that you've had, because again, it's easy to forget. I mean, I forget to do this all the time, and it's easy, like when you need it, to try and remember how you've been smashing it for the last 12 to 18 months can be quite difficult. So try and keep a track record or a journal or some way to capture the evidence of your impact, so you can give it to the powers that be, and then it will just make it easy for them to say yes, is what you should be thinking in mind. Keep in mind, like, how can I make this easy for them to say yes? I'll stop talking because I could go on for ages about that, I think.
I'm enjoying listening, and I think I get a bit self-conscious about interrupting. So, what you said about the impact was quite interesting, because I remember reading about how people make the argument based on the work they put in and not based on the results they get.
Yeah.
When you make the ask, I think the idea was it's good to say, because of my work, depending on the job you're in, like, we were able to improve releases by this much, or we were
Yeah.
able to find this much less bugs, or whatever, but some sort of result, because people don't always care as much about what you do. They care about the results from what you have done.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%, because there are toxic companies and bosses out there. So I'm categorically not talking about those situations. This advice doesn't apply to them. But I mean, I've been a people manager before, and the thing is, when you're in a people management role, you get a lot of pull in different directions, and it is incumbent upon you to look after the people in your team. But life being life, you just forget sometimes, or for some reason, something falls through the cracks. So what you shouldn't rely on is one individual holding the keys to your success. Like, you should not. Like, I don't think that sounds risky as hell. Like, we're testers, we're in the risk business. Like, that seems like a single point of failure. So if you can get the evidence, so that you can just present it to this person or somebody else and say, "You remember that promotion that I told you about? Here's what I've been doing to move towards that. You said I need to learn this skill. Here's evidence that I've learned the skill, and here's the impact that it had." And then they'll be like, "Oh wow, that's amazing." And it's not because that they're horrible human beings. They're just human. That in and of itself, making your if there are people up the food chain from you, making their lives easier, your stakeholders, whoever they are, if you make their lives easier, your life will get easier.
Are you talking about managing up?
Managing up, yeah, good phrase, yeah, managing up, exactly.
I think I recently came across that 6 months ago, like fairly recently, and as you said, it was about making your manager or your boss's life easier,
Mm,
and trying to think ahead. So, like, trying to give them in advance the information that they would be asking for,
yeah,
communicating in such a way that it's easier for them to receive the information. Because you said that you've been a people manager before, and sometimes you forget things, and you're managing a lot of people. So if you keep that in mind, then it's easy. Like, it's easy to see the world through your own lens, but then it's going to take a step back and
yeah.
see how you fit into other people's worlds.
This time last year, I was off work sick for close to a month. And right before I went off work, I was talking to someone in my team about getting a promotion. And so I was off work, and I came back, and it was just like, Vernon's back, whoosh. Like, and all this stuff had to be sorted out. So it took me another 2 weeks, I think, to get back in touch with this person, which wasn't fantastic on my part. But sadly, in that 6 weeks, he hadn't moved the situation along at all, because he was waiting for me to come back. And and so I tried to communicate to him, as like, so I understand why you did that, but actually, your career is too important to leave it all in my hands. Like, it's no one is going to care more about your career than you. And I'm not saying that because I don't care about your career. I'm just saying that because I was ill. With respect, I wasn't thinking about anybody at work. I was ill. Like I was
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to get
yeah,
better. So it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
in that 4 weeks, that's a lot of time. Like you could have made some moves to help yourself get what you want and what you need for you and your family. And so it's that kind of thing that I'm talking about. It's like no one would call me a douchebag because I was ill for 4 weeks. But the fact of the matter is, if you're relying on me to do something and I'm not there for 4 weeks, then that's 4 weeks wasted. Did you have to? Was there anything else you could have done to have helped move that situation along and then try and do those things?
Like you said, it was a lesson, important lesson learned for
I
that
hope so.
person. Yeah. Now, I was I've been asking you a bit about like what's needed to get promotions as a tester, and it sounds to me you've worked at different companies, you've been exposed to a bunch of different contexts. Have you seen much variation as to what's needed to be promoted?
I think I've only really thought about it like really explicitly and deliberately quite recently, only over the last few years, to be honest. Before that, it felt incredibly subjective and opaque. And it's only more recently, maybe because of where I'm at in my career, that I'm thinking about it much more deliberately, and I'm noticing how companies do it. It feels like there are some common themes, but the way that they go about achieving those seems to be different. So it seems to be the further up the food chain you go, people are looking for your impact to get wider. So if you think of a blast radius, it gets bigger.
Mm.
So if you're, let's say, earlier in your career and you're an individual contributor in a team, people are probably expecting you to just focus on you. Like, what do I need to learn? What do I need to think about? What does my performance need to be? And then as you go up the food chain or have a broader impact, then people are thinking, okay, how are you helping your teammates get better at X? And how are you helping other teams get better at Y?
Okay.
That seems to be that seems to be a thing. The way people go about that, like I've seen all kinds of career ladders, career. What's my friend call it? What does Stu call it? Stu, if you're listening, when you hear this, please correct me in the comments somewhere or whatever. But there's like you can call them a ladder, a framework, a matrix, a map, but it's all trying to model this space of I'm currently here and I'm trying to get to here. And what's the gap in between? Like, how can I close the gap between where I am and where I want to get to?
It's interesting to hear about the impact. And I do wonder if the companies that choose between like a matrix and a ladder and all the other different ways of communicating career growth, what that says about the company. Because I would say a career ladder kind of suggests that it's like one direction. But then
Yeah,
something like a matrix or a map, I think you mentioned, to me suggests more horizontal movement is possible. Um,
yeah.
or maybe they don't overthink. I'm an overthinker. You might be able
No,
to
no.
tell.
You're well. If you're overthinking, so the two people or three people that I had in mind that I've spoke about this at any great length, they thought the same thing. So my friend Stuart Day, he is I'm going to get this wrong. I think he's a head of quality at Dunelm. I think that's his job title. I should know this because we're doing a presentation together at Test Bash. Sorry, Stu. But he explicitly didn't want to use the term ladder for that exact reason. He was kind of saying, well, you might not want to go in that direction. You might want to go in a different direction. Like that's just very one dimensional. And so he deliberately, for his framework, I can't remember what word he used, but it almost looks like a board. It almost looks like a board game, and you can like zigzag this way and go down and go across and do all this stuff. It's crazy. It's very cool. Dan Ashby came up with a map, like an impact map or an impact framework. I think he's beloved about it. And my friend Dave Williams had this other, I don't know what he called it. I think it was a matrix, but again, it was like you're here, and as you grow in seniority, then your impact will change. He created two. One was for if you're going down the management track, and one was if you were going down the individual contributor track kind of thing, and he was like, well, okay, if you're going down the IC track and you are aiming, and you're currently here and you want to be somewhere else, then this is the kind of impact you need to have, etc., etc. I think you're right. I think what I've seen more recently are not trying to make it so one-dimensional. And there's this really cool website, I think it's called progression.fyi, which is trying to share career frameworks of various companies. So you could go and check out that website and see what's on there and see how other people are helping people progress in their careers. There's a ton of information on there. Last time I checked it, it went from being very free to not being free, but I think there's still a free tier. I think you can still get information on there, I think. But definitely check it out. It's really cool.
Thank you. I'll link this in the description so people can also check it out and get an idea of how this can look. We've been talking a bit about career paths, and I've been asking you for advice. If for people who are new to testing or are looking to become testers, what do you want these people to know about career paths as a software tester?
I would say, like, I only have anecdata for this. I don't have actual data. Like, there were no peer-reviewed studies performed before I answered this question. But I do feel, even though I'm biased, that a career in testing can really send you in any direction that you wish, because your testing skills can help you address quality problems. And a lot of the time, you'll be asked to solve testing problems that are actually quality problems. So, in other words, they don't have anything to do with testing whatsoever. Or they only manifest themselves at testing, and they probably can be mitigated more powerfully somewhere else in the path to production or your software delivery lifecycle. So don't be put off by going into a career in testing, and don't be put off whilst you're in a very explicit testing specialist kind of role. You can use that as a springboard to somewhere else. You'll get a really good insight into how things work from that position. The challenge is that depending on which organization you're in, you may not be able to access the levers as easily to change and impact the quality problems, but you'll definitely get a good sense of where they're at. So if you combine being in a position to understand the system really well with your ability to work with people and your technical know-how and your ability to tie what happens during delivery to business outcomes, all of those things will mean you can go in all kinds of different directions. There are people that I met through the course of my career who are now CEOs or CTOs, VPs of, consultants, authors, SREs, engineering managers. I think you're in a good spot to kind of go from testing somewhere else. It could be difficult. Well, not even could be. It will be difficult. All kinds of, like, growth is difficult just by its very nature. But yeah, my advice would be, don't be put off by people telling you that, explicitly telling you that testing is dead, or implying that it's dead, or implying that quality roles suck. But do use it wisely and use the opportunity to understand all the moving parts and then decide where you're going to go to from there. And I would also advise you to network and network and network, because what you want to do is have the opportunities find you rather than the other way around. And that's what networking is for. Be an active participant in conversations about software delivery within your organization, if you happen to be in one, or in the online spaces where people are talking about software delivery, whether that's Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn, meetups, Slack channels all over the bloody place, whatever, blogs, reply to people's blogs, put comments, whatever, and just do some recon and understand what's going on. So that's what I would what I would advise.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and both on that question and on our whole conversation today. If people wanted to find you online or wanted to hear more of what you have to say, where could they find you?
Okay, so first place, the easiest place to find me is Twitter. So my Twitter handle is going to take some explaining. I'm from Leicester. My Twitter handle is supposed to be Tester from Leicester, but because there are character limits on Twitter, it's Tester from LEIC, which is short for Leicester. Not leak, people. Don't ruin the prime. It's Tester from Leicester. So that's the first place. You can hook up with me on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn is Vernon Richards. I've been blogging at typeshare.co/Vernon Richards. So if you want to hear what I'm talking about, you can find me over there. And there's a bunch of stuff that if you want to hear more of me talking about testing and quality, there are some disparate videos all over YouTube that I need to grab and collect and put in one place. But if you just search in YouTube for Vernon Richards testing or something like that, then you'll hear me waffling on about coaching and quality and testing.
Okay, thanks. I actually like how you have such an online presence where you're like, oh, if you want to find me talking about testing, just Google me, and that's what I
Listen,
heard when you were talking.
listen, I'm trying to be like you, Nicola. Are you kidding me? Yo, you are killing it. I love it. I love it. Honestly, you're a big, big motivation and inspiration for me with what you're doing with these interviews, with your blog posts, with the book, just asking people cool questions. The way you engage with people on Twitter is beautiful. I love it. So I'm just trying to be like you, to be honest.
Thank you for such kind words. And again, thank you for your time.